time is at hand for the black man and the black woman, for the Native American man and woman, for the so-called Hispanic man and woman to rise out this thing, rise to that glory as the children of Israel. It's high time you wake up out of sleep and come back to serve your father and his son.
You sons and daughters of the slave trade, you are the children of Israel, and we showing it to you in the Bible, through the Spirit of Christ. Our people have to say what? Come back to this Bible. Read the Bible for yourself to get the understanding.
So black man and black woman, you being charged with the commandments of the Most High. Repent and seek ye the kingdom. All right, shalom, brothers and sisters. I'm Kanai Dubar.
I'm Abiel.
Today we're going to go over a subject that comes up quite often concerning is the Most High dealing with women's spirits. You know, you have a lot of people out there that believe amongst Israel that women don't have a part. They're just there to cook, clean, and have sex with. And then you have the other spectrum where they believe that women are allowed to teach. And we're going to go according to the scripture to show you what part does the woman play in this gospel. All right? Let's start with 1 Timothy chapter 2. Verse 11 and 12.
1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 11. Let the woman learn in silence with all subjection. But I suffer not a woman to teach, nor to usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence.
Right. It says, the Most High said, let a woman learn in silence with all subjection. Subjection to what? To her husband, to this Bible first and foremost, to what God prescribes a woman's job is. Verse 12.
Verse 12. But I suffer not a woman to teach.
But the word suffer means allow. I allow not a woman to teach. We don't.
Nor to usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence.
Right. The scripture says that a woman is not allowed to teach, nor to usurp authority over the man. Meaning, like you would have your Juanita Bynums and these other televangelists or women that call themselves Joyce Myers, that they're leading congregations. He said, no, I do not allow that. A woman is to be in silence, and she's not supposed to usurp authority over the man. Why is that? Let's go real quick. Ezekiel chapter 34. Now, I want you sisters to understand something. There's a role for you to play in this gospel, right? 34:31.
Ezekiel chapter 34, verse 31. And ye my flock, the flock of my pasture, are men.
Repeat that.
And ye my flock, the flock of my pasture, are men.
The Most High said the flock of his pasture are men. Go from that to Numbers, chapters 27. Numbers 27, verse 16.
Numbers chapter 27, verse 16. Let the Lord, the God of the spirits of all flesh, set a man over the congregation.
So what was set over the congregation?
A man over the congregation.
So a man was set up over the congregation. So it's not permitted for women to teach. Now, if some of you sisters are upset about that, you better resolve that in your spirit. There's no place for you to lead and to lead God's people in the keeping of the commandments.
Right.
But there's a purpose for you. Please don't misinterpret. We do understand there's prophetess women that will prophesy, and we're going to go through that now. So now we established a woman in the church, she's to be quiet, silent.
One more scripture.
Go ahead, brother.
1 Corinthians, the 14th chapter. Are you going to go to this, sir?
Let's go to now.
1 Corinthians chapter 14. We're going to start at verse 33.
I'll read for you. 1 Corinthians 14, 33. It says, let's start with verse 30. Yeah, it says, for God is not the author of confusion.
The Most High is not the author of confusion. Women teaching and heading up congregations is confusion. Like you got that woman, Juanita Bynum,
right,
on Facebook, typing in tongues. In tongues. That's confusion. The Most High said what?
For God is not the author of confusion,
Come on.
but of peace, as As in all the churches of the saints.
As in all the churches and the saints. There's order in all the churches of the saints. We're guided by the laws of the Most High God. Read on.
It says, let your woman keep silent in the churches.
Right after it says the Most High is not the author of confusion, it says, let your women keep silence in the churches. Read.
It says, for it is not permitted unto them to speak.
This meaning, not permitted unto them to speak, meaning it's not for them to teach. It's not for them to be heading up and trying to overstep the men and teach the congregation. The Most High set men up for that. Read on.
But they are commanded to be under obedience, as also saith the Lord.
As also saith the law. The woman is commanded to be in subjection unto her husband, like it tells us in Genesis, the 3rd chapter, right?
Right.
It tells us that what? The woman's supposed to be under the man. That's all I have, sir.
Now, verse 35. And if they will learn anything, let them ask their husbands at home.
If the woman's going to learn anything according to this word, she's to ask her husband at home. That's the order. That's what the Most High set up. Read.
For it is a shame for a woman to speak in the church.
What is a shame for a woman to speak in the church? These women you see out here in Christianity, so-called Christianity, heading up these churches and teaching in these churches, it's not according to the word of God. It's not according to thus saith the Lord.
And it's important that you understand it, because there's order for everything. It does not negate that we had many righteous sisters that were mighty in it. And at times, they stood up and spoke for the commandments of the Most High. We can read them. We're going to go over it. But as far as leading God's children in the keeping of the commandments, it was meant for the men. So let's begin. Let's go to the book of Joel. But the point I want to really go into is that you have brothers and people teaching that a woman don't have no part. The Most High ain't dealing with women. That's untrue. Joel, chapter 2, verse 28.
Joel chapter 2, verse 28. And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams, and your young men shall see visions.
Read on.
And also upon the servants and upon their handmaids in those days will I pour out my spirit.
So the Lord said here, he says, and it shall come to pass afterwards that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh. Your sons and your daughters, the woman, female, shall prophesy. Your old men shall see dreams, your young men shall see visions. And also upon the servants and upon the handmaids, in those days will I pour out my spirit. So let's go and see, what is that talking about, that they're going to prophesy and the Most High is going to pour his spirit upon them? Meaning he's going to deal with the woman also, the female. Let's prove that. Let's go from that to Acts 2. So hopefully this class can be edification and exhortation for sisters. If they know they have a part to play in this, you just got to play a role prescribed as the scriptures say.
Right.
Let's go to Joel chapter 2, verse 17.
Joel.
Let's go with verse 14.
Acts chapter 2, verse 14. We're in Acts, the 2nd chapter, and the 14th verse.
Thank you.
But Peter, standing up with the 11, lifted up his voice and said unto them, Ye men of Judea, and all ye that dwell at Jerusalem, be this known unto you, and hearken unto my words.
Peter was set up to run the church after Christ resurrected and went back to the Father. Read on.
For these are not drunken, as ye suppose, seeing it is but the 3rd hour of the day.
So these men that when you read Acts the 2nd chapter, this was the Feast of Weeks, or as you know today, the Feast of Pentecost, where you had these Jews, devout men out of every nation, coming back to Jerusalem to keep the feast. They thought that the apostles were drunk because they heard them speaking in the languages where they came out of. Read on.
Verse 16. But this is that which was spoken by the prophet Joel.
This is that what was spoken by the prophet Joel. We just read Joel chapter 2, verse 28. Let's see what, this is what Paul, I should say, this is what Peter is quoting from. He's quoting from the prophet Joel. Read on.
Verse 17. And it shall come to pass, in the last days, saith God, I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons
and your what?
And your sons
Read on.
And your daughters shall prophesy.
So what happened in Acts 2? The sons, the males prophesied. What did they do? They preached the coming. They preached on Christ. Right. They spoke in tongue. When the Most High poured a spirit upon them, He gave them a spirit that they could speak in other languages that they were not learned in. And they began to preach about Christ. Read on. It says, your sons and your daughters
shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. And on my servants and on my handmaids I will pour out in those days of my spirit, and they shall prophesy.
Right, but right here in Acts 2, we don't read about the women prophesying. We read about men prophesying. So where do we read in the scriptures? Because Joel the prophet said it was going to happen. The Most High gave Joel that vision. So where did it happen at? Let's go from that to Acts chapter 21, verse 9, verse 8.
Acts, the 21st chapter and the 8th verse. And the next day, we that were of Paul's company departed and came up to Caesarea. And we entered into the house of Philip the evangelist, which was one of the 7, and abode with him.
Right, so Philip, he was one of the 7 that was charged to take over the office of the widowhood, to make sure these women were taken care of, along with Stephen that you all may be familiar with in Acts the 8th chapter. Anyway, or Acts the 7th chapter, I should say. Anyway, so we're going to read on. Read on.
Verse 9. And the same man,
Philip,
had 4 daughters, virgins, which did prophesy.
So this man, Philip, had 4 daughters which prophesied, which would go according to what we read in Joel 2, the same thing that Peter spoke about in Acts chapter 2. So let's see. What does it mean that these women prophesied? Let's go from that to Revelations. Remember, the Bible answers itself. Man does not have to answer the Bible. God will give His explanation in His Word. So when you hear brothers teaching about women don't have a part, the Most High ain't dealing with them, that's not based on God's Word. That's based on the figment of their imagination. Let's read Revelations chapter 19, and let's start with verse 10.
Revelations chapter 19, verse 10. And I fell at his feet to worship him. And he said unto me, see thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant and of thy brethren, that have the testimony of Jesus. Worship God. For the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy.
So when you testify of Jesus, it is the spirit of prophecy. So when these young women testified, when these young women, these 4 virgins, prophesied, what did they prophesy about? Christ. Like many of us have testimonies on how we came into this truth. So the testimony of Jesus is a spirit of prophecy. Let's go from that. Let's go back to Acts. Acts chapter 19. We're going to give you an example of that testimony of Jesus is a spirit of prophecy coming from a woman. Acts 19. Let's read verse 24. Let's read, I'm wrong. Acts 18, verse 24.
Acts, the 18th chapter and the 24th verse. And a certain Jew named Apollos, born at Alexandria, an eloquent man and mighty in the scriptures, came to Ephesus. This man was instructed in the way of the Lord, and being fervent in the spirit, he spake and taught diligently the things of the Lord, knowing only the baptism of John.
So this man was learned in this Bible, but all he came up in was the baptism of John. He has not received the baptism of Christ, which John said supersedes his baptism. Read on.
Verse 26. And he began to speak boldly in the synagogue, whom when Aquila and Priscilla had heard, they took him unto them, and expounded unto him the way of God more perfectly.
I want you to read verse 26 again.
Verse 26. And he began to speak boldly in the synagogue, whom when Aquila and Priscilla...
You understand, Aquila and Priscilla was a husband and wife. Read on.
Had heard, they took him unto them. They took him unto them.
Read on.
And expounded unto him the way of God more perfectly.
They made more clear what? The testimony of Jesus Christ is a spirit of prophecy. So what did Priscilla do in here? What did Aquila do? They gave a testimony. Like all of us, like I said before, Priscilla, like myself, like Brother Abio, we all have testimonies on how we repented, how we were born again.
How we came in the truth.
How we came in truth. Does this mean that she superseded him and she started holding down a class? No. She just gave her testimony of what she'd been through and how she was converted. And it was helped to do what? To help make him more perfect in the eyesight of the Most High. So let's go from that. Let's go from that to Micah. No, let's go from that to Numbers. No, Micah. Let's go with Micah. Micah, the 6th chapter. Bear with me. Micah chapter 6, verse 4.
Micah chapter 6, verse 4. For I brought thee up out of the land of Egypt.
He brought the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt.
And redeemed thee out of the house of servants. And I sent before them Moses, Aaron, and Miriam.
He said, I sent before them Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. Miriam was also sent to what? Help deliver the children of Israel. So how is the Moses not dealing with women's spirit? That's untrue. That's not biblical. That's not biblically correct. Of course the Most High deal with women's spirit. But we have to understand, Miriam also had to know her place.
Right.
She had to know her place. And we're going to read about that she was out of order, and the Most High dealt with her. But to say that the Most High is not dealing with women, that's untrue. Let's go, let's explain what happened with Miriam. Numbers, chapter 12. Numbers 12, verse 1 and 2.
Numbers, the 12th chapter, and the 1st verse. And Miriam and Aaron spake against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married. For he had married an Ethiopian woman. And they said, hath the Lord indeed spoken only by Moses?
And they said, who said? Miriam and Aaron said what?
Hath the Lord indeed spoken only by Moses?
They said, listen, the Lord is only dealing with you, Moses. Read on.
Hath he not spoken also by us? And the Lord heard it.
Right. So now both of them are saying, Miriam and Aaron, the Lord has spoken by us also, Moses. Read on.
Verse 3. Now the man Moses was very meek, above all the men which are upon the face of the earth.
Read on.
And the Lord spake suddenly unto Moses, and unto Aaron, and unto Miriam, come out ye three unto the tabernacle of the congregation. And they three came out. And the Lord came down in the pillar of the cloud, and stood in the door of the tabernacle, and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forth.
But now he called all three of them out, and he said, Miriam, Aaron, come forth. I want to deal with you. Read on.
Verse 6. And he said, hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I the Lord will make myself known unto him in a vision, and will speak unto him in a dream.
Right, that's how he speaks to prophets. Read on.
My servant Moses is not so, who is faithful in all mine house.
He said Moses ain't like that. He said he's faithful. Read on.
Verse 8. With him will I speak mouth to mouth.
He said, I'm not going to speak to him in a dream. I'm not going to let Moses go into a dream state and explain to him what I want to know. He said, I'm going to speak to him mouth to mouth. Meaning what? I'm going to speak to him when he's conscious, when he's awake. Read on.
Even apparently, and not in dark speeches. And the similitude of the Lord shall he behold. Wherefore then, were ye not afraid to speak against my servant Moses?
He said, weren't you afraid to speak against Moses, knowing I speak to him mouth to mouth? You know he ain't no average prophet. He ain't regular. I'm talking to him. Read on.
Verse 9. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against them.
Against who?
Them.
Them. Aaron and Miriam. The Lord was angry with them. But what happened?
And he departed. Verse 10. And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle. And behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow.
Now he was angry with them. But who did he curse? He cursed Miriam. Let's see why. Read on.
And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. And Aaron said unto Moses, Alas, my Lord, I beseech thee, lay not the sin upon us, wherein we have done foolishly, and wherein we have sinned.
Right. We have sinned and we've done foolishly. We don't.
Let her not be as one dead.
He said, don't let her be as one who's dead. No pigmentation in her skin. White. We don't.
Of whom the flesh is half consumed when he cometh out of his mother's womb. And Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, Heal her now, O God, I beseech thee. And the Lord said unto Moses, If her father had but spit in her face.
The Lord said to Moses, listen, if her father would have spit in her face, read on.
Should she not be ashamed 7 days?
He said, if her father would have corrected her and taught her her place, then she wouldn't be ashamed 7 days, meaning with this curse. So even though Most High was dealing with Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, she still needs to know her place when she's dealing with the prophets of Most High. And that goes for you sisters in this truth. Still know how to deal with men that's in these commandments. You can't talk to them in any kind of way. As much as understanding you might think you have, many of you speak evil. It's not of the Most High. That's what you were saying?
No.
Okay, read on.
Verse 15? Verse 14.
Right.
And the Lord said unto Moses, If her father had but spit in her face, should she not be ashamed 7 days? Let her be shut out of the camp 7 days.
Right, he said, no, okay, she has to be put out the camp for 7 days because he cursed her. Let's go from that to 1 Peter. So we're showing that Most High is dealing with the woman, but the woman also must know her place. All right? 1 Peter.
It's called order.
Right.
Most High is about order.
Exactly. 1 Peter chapter 3, let's read verse 5.
1 Peter chapter 3, verse 5. For after this manner in the old time the holy women also, who trusted in God, adorned themselves, being in subjection unto their own husbands. Even as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters ye are, as long as ye do well, and are not afraid with any amazement.
Right, it says that after these manner, also in old time, the holy women also who trusted in God adorned themselves of what? The commandments. They abided. They understood the flock of the Most High passions of men. They knew the Most High, the congregation was going to be led by men. They understood that. It says, being in subjection to their own husband. Like many sisters today don't want to be in subjection. Even yours that call yourself Israelites, you still got problems. You don't want to listen. He's like, listen, don't get on the Facebook. I don't want you speaking to this person. Why? 10,000 reasons why. It says you got to be subjection to your husband. It says, even as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord. How many sisters call your husband Lord? It says, whose daughters ye are, you are a daughter of Sarah, as long as you do well. As long as you do well, you are a daughter of Sarah. Let's see what happens. Let's go from that. Let's see an example of the daughter of Sarah. Let's go to the book of Judith and the Apocrypha. Now, for those that are first watching, the Apocrypha is part of the King James Bible that was taken out in the 1800s by the Protestants. Okay? The original 1611 Bible had these books in it. Let's go to the book of Judith, chapter 8. And I want to read verse 1. Now, I'm going to give you a little brief on the book of Judith. This was during the time of the rise of the Babylonians under Nebuchadnezzar. They came to fight against the southern kingdom, and they sent one of their generals, Holofernes. And we're going to read what happened with Judith. All right?
Judith chapter 8, verse 1. Now at that time Judith heard thereof, which was the daughter of Miriam, the son of Ox, the son of Joseph, the son of Oziel, the son of Hilkiah, the son of Ananias, the son of Gideon, the son of Raphan, the son of Achitho, the son of Eliu, the son of Eliab, the son of Nathaniel, the son of Samuel, the son of Selicidai, the son of Israel.
Yeah.
And Manasseh was her husband, of her tribe and kindred, who died in the barley harvest.
So this woman, Judith, was a widow. I want you to jump to verse 9.
Verse 9. Now when she heard the evil words of the people against the governor, that they fainted for lack of water, For Judith had heard all the words that Ozias had spoken unto them, and that he had sworn to deliver the city unto the Assyrians after 5 days. Then she sent her waiting woman that had the government of all things that she had, to call Ozias and Cabris and Carmis, the ancients of the city.
So now, when she heard that the city was being besieged, and they were going to give a time period when they were going to give up if they didn't have deliverance from the Most High, she called the governors of the cities to her. Let's see what happened.
Verse 11. And they came unto her.
And they what?
And they came unto her.
So they listened. They came to her.
And she said unto them, Hear me now, O ye governors of the inhabitants of Bethulia. For your words that have been spoken before the people this day are not right, touching this oath which ye made and pronounced between God and you.
So she said, the oath you made by saying if in 5 days we don't have a deliverance, she said, the oath you made is not right. So correction can come from anybody. And we have to have a humble spirit to accept it. If it comes from a woman, or a woman, if it comes from a child, if it comes from another brother, right is right. This woman said, the judgment you came with ain't correct. We don't.
It says, and have promised to deliver the city to our enemies, unless within these days the Lord turn to help you. And now, who are ye that have tempted God this day, and stand instead of God among the children of men? And now try the Lord Almighty. But ye shall never know anything, for ye cannot find the depth of the heart of man, neither can ye perceive the things that he thinketh. Then how can ye search out God, that have made all these things, and know his mind, or comprehended his purpose? Nay, my brethren, provoke not the Lord our God to anger. For if he will not help us within these 5 days, he hath power to defend us when he will, even every day, or to destroy us before our enemies. Do not bind the counsels of the Lord of our God, for God is not as man, that he may be threatened, neither is he as the son of man, that he should be wavering.
Verse 17.
Verse 17. Therefore let us wait for salvation of him, and call upon him to help us, and he will hear our voice, if it please him.
Right. So what did she do? She gave counsel, said, be patient. The Most High. So the judgment you came with is wrong. So we have a sister here. Correct it. Jump to verse 28.
Verse 28.
1 second. Go read on. Verse 28.
Verse 28. Then said Ozias to her, All that thou hast spoken hast thou spoken with a good heart.
What did he say? All that she spoke with a good mind. Her mind was sober, grounded in the commandments. Read on.
And there is none that may gainsay thy words.
Right, and there's none that can gainsay her words. So what happened when she spoke? The men stayed quiet, because they knew what she was saying was of the Most High. So what do you mean the Most High is not dealing with women's spirits? It's not correct. Wrong teaching. Read on.
Verse 29. For this is not the first day wherein thy wisdom is manifested, but from the beginning of thy days all the people have known thy understanding, because the disposition of thine heart is good.
Right, it says, for this is not the first day wherein thy wisdom was manifested. They said, Judith, this is the first time we recognize the Most High is dealing with your spirit. Because because it says what? Because it says, and all the people have known thy understanding. Everybody knew you were a woman understanding. It says, because the disposition of your heart is good. Because your mind is what? In these commandments. Read on.
Verse 31. Therefore now pray thou for us, because thou art a godly woman, and the Lord will send us rain to fill our cisterns.
What they say? They asked her to pray for them, that the Most High can bless us. These were the leaders asking for a woman to pray and make intercession to the Most High for the nation of Israel. Read on.
And we shall faint no more. Then said Judith unto them, Hear me, and I will do a thing which shall go throughout all generations to the children of our nation. Ye shall stand this night in the gate, and I will go forth with my waiting woman. And within the days that ye have promised to deliver the city to our enemies, the Lord will visit Israel by mine hand.
She said the Lord's going to visit Israel by what?
Mine hand.
Wait a second. This is redundant now. The Most High put a spirit on her. She said the Most High is going to deliver Israel by her hand. This ain't a man's hand. So what do you mean? You sisters got a part to play.
That's right.
You got a part to play in this nation, but you got to do it according to the scriptures. Don't let these scriptures right now that we're reading right now embolden you now to be disrespectful or to usurp authority or be back and forth, argue with men.
Stepping out of the order.
Right, stepping out of the order. That's the word. Want to battle back and forth with men. No. Know your order. Judith was a meek and quiet woman. It's only until she found us in the midst of sin that she spoke up. Likewise, anybody. If somebody's in the midst of sin, anybody has a right to speak up and say right from wrong. Man, woman, or child. Read on.
Verse 34. But inquire not ye of mine act, for I will not declare it unto you, till the things be finished that I do. Then said Ozias and the princes unto her, Go in peace, and the Lord God be before thee, to take vengeance on our enemies. So they returned from the tent and went to their words.
Let's go to chapter 13 of the same book. We'll read verse 2.
Please, Judith chapter 13, verse 2. And Judith was left alone in the tent, and Holofernes lying upon his bed, for he was filled with wine.
Well, okay, so when you read the story, Holofernes was the captain of Nebuchadnezzar's host. And Judith got herself decked up. She went out of the camp and met with him. And he thought she was beautiful. So every day he invited her to dinner to eat. So this night he was full of wine. You know.
Verse 3. Now Judith had commanded her maid to stand without her bedchamber, and to wait for her coming forth, as she did daily. For she said she would go forth to her prayers, and she spake to Boaz according to the same purpose.
Right, she spoke to the man that worked under Holofernes, and he knew that every day she went out to pray, outside of their camp to pray. So she was given permission. You know.
Verse 4. So all went forth, and none was left in the bedchamber, neither little nor great. Then Judith, standing by his bed, said in her heart, O Lord God of all power, look at this present upon the works of mine hand, for the exaltation of Jerusalem. For now is the time to help thine inheritance, and to execute mine enterprises to the destruction of the enemies which are risen against us. Then she came to the pillar of the bed, which was at Holofernes' head, and took down his falchion from thence, and approached to his bed, and took hold of the hair of his head, and said, Strengthen me, O Lord God of Israel, this day. And she smote twice upon his head with all her might, and she took away his head from him.
So what did she do? The Most High put a spirit on her to go chop this man's head off. Why? Because the men at that point, they were in the right spirit. They were fearful. They were about to give in. And she spoke up.
That's right.
And she wanted to what? Cut this Holofernes' head off. Let's go. Say it again.
Beheaded him.
I like this story here. Go to verse 18.
Verse 18. Then said Ozias unto her, O daughter, blessed art thou of the Most High God above all the women upon the earth. And blessed be the Lord God, which hath created the heavens and the earth, which hath directed thee to the cutting off of the head of the chief of our enemies. For this thy confidence shall not depart from the heart of men, which remember the power of God forever.
Right. So it says, Then said Ozias unto her, O daughter, blessed art thou of the Most High God above all the women of the earth. Blessed be the Lord God, which hath created the heavens and earth, which hath directed thee in the cutting off the head of the chief of our enemies. The Most High directed her. So the Most High was dealing with her spirit. So the point we want to draw to you brothers and sisters out there is that the Most High is dealing with sisters. Love, honor your women. But you women, reverence the man. Understand that the Most High made us perfect to come to be prophets of the Most High, to bring forth this word to the people. Let us play our order, and the sisters play yours. Together, we can grow and build a nation of Israel. So with that, I'd like to say shalom.
Shalom.